Hi, Elaine here. Today I'll be sharing how to data merge a vertical weekly planner layout with any source data in Affinity Publisher. The layout we'll be using was created in the last video. If you haven't seen that yet and you're interested, check it out before or after you watch this video. The design made in that last video had 7 days in a vertical format, a mini calendar in the top left, space for notes on the left hand side, but today it's all about the data. And this is what we're aiming for, adding the date, the day, and any holidays or special interest days to that existing layout. My data is in an Excel file. To connect to that data, go to Window and Data Merge Manager. Then you need to click the button in the lower left hand corner and locate your source file. Mine's called Planner Dates. Select and click Open. It doesn't open the file itself. What it actually does is make it available as a data source inside Affinity Publisher. Now, before we do anything with it inside Affinity Publisher, let's actually have a look at the data itself in Excel. There are 4 fields: short date, long date, day, and holiday. You'll notice it starts on the 30th of September. And that's because for a weekly layout, it would need to include the Monday, which isn't actually October. For the same reason, we scroll down the data, I've included the 1st of November, 2nd and 3rd of November. Because again, I want a full week's layout, and that would need to include the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday. Now, all of that could be done inside Excel or even a CSV file manually. If you look at A2, you can see I have actually just entered a single date in there, the 30th of September 2024. But the way that I've done it means if I change that date in A2, all of the other dates will update. So if we have a look at what's in A3, it's taking whatever I typed into A2 and adding 1 to it. And it does that all the way down, which displays the next date. If I change that to the 1st of November 2024, as soon as I press enter, everything updates. It wouldn't work great as a data source because it would be starting on a Friday. But that's just to show you that it does automatically update. And it updates all of the columns with dates in, A, B and C. Obviously, it can't do anything with the holidays. They were added manually. So let's change that back to the 30th of September. And see that everything changes. Now, the other thing to be aware of that I have done here is that I have used the text function rather than relying on Excel formatting. Let me show you what that looks like. Whatever I have typed in A2, the cell next to it needs to be the same date, but what is called a long date, where the month is expanded fully. You could do that by formatting in Excel, but you can see I've used a function. That's because different countries use different formats, and Excel relies on your computer's system settings to work out how it should display a date. Excel's preferences are also different on different platforms too. Using the text function means I have absolute control over what is passed to Affinity Publisher in the data merge. So taking a look at that long date, I'm in the UK, so my format is equals text. Then you open the brackets and you give it 2 arguments. The first is tell it where the date actually is. So A3 is the 1st of October. The second argument is telling it what format I would like to use. I would like a single digit to represent the day. I want to see the month in full and I want to see the year in full. And that's what DMMMMYYYY does. If you're in the US, it's very similar. The function is the same, equals text. Again, you give it the cell with the date in it, A3, but this time I've put MMMM, which is the month in full, followed by a single digit for the day, followed by a comma, followed by the year. I've also used the text function for the long day, and that is equals text, tell it where the date is, A3, and then tell it what I want it to look like. Just the day name, but in full. If you wanted to use a short day, it would be equals text, A3, which is where the date is coming from, and instead of 4 Ds, it would be 3 Ds. If you want just the day number, it would be equals text, A3 to tell it where the date is coming from, and the format would be a single D. Now, the 3 critical fields in my data are the long date, the day, and the holiday. The long date is, as you would expect, 1 or 2 digits for the day number, the month in full, and the year in full. The day is the full name for the heading. Now, that could be done manually, but we might as well automate it. And then the holidays, any national holidays or other special events. Now, since this is custom data, you could include birthdays, anniversaries, or dates that are important to you. And that is it for the data. Don't intend to save that. You never know what I might have broken. And I know the data originally was working, so leave it alone. So how do we add that to this? First thing I'm going to do is to move my data merge panel out of the way. It's on my other screen. And come back and zoom in to these 3 columns representing Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. And I need to add a data merge layout. Over on the Tools panel, there is a data merge layout tool. Click that once and then draw out where you would like your data merge area to be. And I want it to be the full width of that. By default, it always has 2 rows and 2 columns, which obviously for my layout is not appropriate. I only need 1 row, but I need 3 columns. Then I need to add placeholders for the actual data. So I'm going to add a text frame, which I will draw out there. We'll need it taller than that. And then using the Fields panel, which I will drag out so we can see it all. It's not within the document statistics, it is within my data merge planner dates. And you can see my 4 fields, which were the columns we had in Excel. Short date, long date, day, and holiday. I'm not actually intending to use the short date in my data merge. That was there to provide the source data for the long date and the day. So in here, I want, first of all, the long date. Double clicking and it gets added. Although I'm only editing this first cell of the data merge layout, you can see that automatically anything in the first cell is replicated in the other 2. Now I would like this to be centered, so making sure I've selected that and clicking the center button. I still, however, have a problem with this. So let's move the fields out of the way and have a look at what the issue is. Even if I were to center this in terms of changing the width of the text block itself, it still won't line up properly. The one in the middle is fine, but the one on the left and the one on the right is slightly out. And that's because the cells are splitting within the gap between the columns. That is an easy fix though. So ensuring that you have the Data Merge Layout tool selected, and you select your Data Merge Layout. When we created the guides for the page, we set the gutter between them, the gap, to be 5 mm. And you can do exactly the same with a Data Merge Layout, although initially it is set to 0. If I set that to 5, that will solve the problem. Because I've made changes, I will need to change my actual text frame here. So setting that so it fits within the cell, and that solves the alignment problems across all 3 columns. That's got my long date sorted out, although it probably needs to be down a little bit. I also need the holiday putting in here, and I placed mine above the long date. To do that, back in your Fields panel, and I'm at the left-hand side of the long date. I'm going to double click to add the holiday, and then press enter. Now, first thing, the holiday is too big. I'll change that to 6 points. And I need to move this up so we can see the long date here. You can see we have a huge gap there that we definitely don't want. So what I've done this time is moved it back and pressed Shift and Enter. One knock-on impact of that is that it has changed the size of my long date. So let me change that back to 8. That's one way to do it. It actually gives you far more flexibility if you use separate text boxes. So let me delete that and get the holiday one sorted out. Make that the height that I need it. and move it to where I think I would like it. Then, holding the Option key and dragging out another copy and changing that from holiday to long date, changing the size of it back to 8. Now I can independently move these around. They are two separate text boxes within the data merge layout, like that. I need one more field in here, and that is the day. So across the dark headings at the top, it would be nice to have the day displayed from my merge data in white. You can do that using this single data merge layout block. Making sure that I've selected that, and pulling it down so it covers the heading as well. Then add a text frame. Again, I would make that full width, makes the alignment easier. I would change the alignment in the text box so it's centered. And finally, put the day in there. Now we can only see half of that because it's the same colour as the heading. What I want to do with that is change it so it's white and move it down, grabbing the text box and moving that down so it's midway across my dark header. And I can still in here come in and tweak where I would need this to be. So looking at that, I think that does need to be a little bit lower, and I would probably put my holiday a little bit lower as well, but not that close I can't read it. And let's preview the layout. Only working on the left hand side at the moment, but I would test it at this point. So I'm saving my layout. I'll bring my data merge dialog back, and in here I need to be absolutely certain I've got the correct data. So I'm going to update, making sure I've got access to the very latest data. There were some sheets in there, and I have 2024 October and 2024 November. It is October that I want for this. You could choose to preview this with a record, but if you notice, it isn't actually accurate. It's only using one record. So each one is saying it's Monday and each one is saying it's the 30th. So while it gives you a little bit of a preview, I always actually run the merge to get an accurate preview. And then hit generate. Moving this out of the way, what I then have is a proper preview that I can work with and decide if I want to make any changes. In the Pages panel, you can see I have too many pages. Why do I have so many pages? And that's because the merge isn't yet set up for 7 days. It's only set up for 3, so it needs more pages. But I've only done this so I can preview the layout. Am I happy with the layout? So I would zoom in and have a look at it. I would use Control and W, which is this option, toggle preview mode, and make a decision if I want to make any changes. I would say one thing I might choose to do is to actually make the date a little bit bigger. But I think the days look all right and the holidays aren't too bad either. So I would close that without saving it. That was my merge data. Back in my pre-merge file, there's the long date. I'm going to change that from 8 to 10. And now I need to think about making sure that I have the days on the right-hand page like I have them on the left. The easiest way to do that is to make sure that you've got the data merge layout selected from the left-hand side. And I'm using Option and dragging, and that is dragging a copy of it over to the right-hand page. Obviously, we're a day missing. I'd need to fix that. But that's fairly easy to do. With it selected, make sure you have the Data Merge Layout tool selected as well. Change the number of columns from 3 to 4, and then stretch it out so it's the full width of the 4 days. And now let's take a look at that. Again, I'll save the file before I run the data merge. Here's my data merge dialog box and generate. Closing that, and this is then the final file. What we should find in here is that we have 5 spreads, one for each week. So starting with the 30th of September to the 6th of October, then the 2nd week, 3rd week, 4th week, and 5th week, which does include the 1st of November, 2nd and 3rd of November as well. If you've seen the first video, you may recall that we created a symbol for the day layout before we duplicated it. If I open in my Layers panel the week, we can see that those day blocks have come through here as symbols. They do not lose the fact that they are symbols. And that means if we go into one of these, unlocking it first and drilling down to that footer, holding the Shift key and making a change, they all change. So it was definitely worth taking the time and making those as symbols, because even when you've merged the data and you're no longer working with that original file, it retains the fact it's a symbol, and that means you have editing superpowers. Let's have a quick recap. This video started assuming that you had a layout that you wanted to data merge. Then you'll need a data source. Your data is added via a data merge layout. I initially created one for Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Then I tested the data merge. It's easier to troubleshoot with a single data merge layout than multiple ones. Once I was happy with the test, I duplicated the data merge layout, adding an extra column to the data merge layout on the right so it covered 4 days, and then completed the final data merge. If you want new tutorials and tips and tricks on a regular basis, check out my free training at elainegiles.com/VIP. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss future tutorials. And if you have any requests for specific tutorials, be sure to contact me. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching and see you next time.